Does magic actually exist? I just think magic is really extraordinary and wonderful, but I don't know what it is or how to explain it.
What is magic to you? And do you believe in it? Like many of you curious kids, I'm sure, Julia has been turning these very important questions over and over in her mind. But maybe this is something we can never really know. After all, we're just one tiny part of our vast, unknowable universe. So, for this last episode of Series 1 of the Conversations Curious Kids, we're going to do something a little different. Neither myself nor a scientist will answer Julia's question, but rather, we'll let her decide. Welcome to the Conversations Curious Kids, the podcast where a kid asks a great question and we find a very clever expert to answer it. Though we won't exactly be doing that today, Curious Kids, if you have a burning question, please still write to us at CuriousKids@theconversation.com and we will do our very best to answer it. I'm Eloise, and today one little girl's question is shooting us into a sky full of colour.
My name is Julia and I'm 7 years old.
And she lives in London. So, what does magic mean to you? When you think of magic, what do you think of?
Rainbows or northern lights.
Ah, yes, very cool. So let's start with rainbows. Why do you think they're magical?
I think that rainbows are magical because they just float there in front of you and you can never go under them. And they're so beautiful and sparkly.
Yeah, so I can understand why it's magical. They are magical because they're so beautiful, aren't they?
Really beautiful.
And so many colours. And so many people and civilizations believed that they had this magic element, right?
Yeah.
All over the world, since the dawn of time, people have found ways to make sense of rainbows using magic and myth. The ancient Greeks thought that the rainbow was the goddess Iris.
Mm-hmm.
And in many stories, she carries messages from the gods to the human world. So it's like a link between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
In Albania, they think that the rainbow is the belt of the goddess Prende. And the legend is that if you jump over the rainbow, you'll change from a boy into a girl or from a girl into a boy.
Oh, that's really amazing. Wow.
But in the 13th century, a Persian mathematician called Kamal al-Din al-Farisi was one of the first people to explain how rainbows are formed using science. So how are these colourful arches created in the sky? Time to call in an expert.
Hi Julia, my name is Partha Chowdhury and I'm almost 70 years old, while you're just 7 years old. I'm a professor of physics at the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, in the northeast part of the United States.
Do you like a good rainbow?
Oh, I love it. Rainbows are absolutely magical. And if you can also figure out why it's happening, it's even more magical. Magic is in our minds, and anything and everything can be magic. I think the world we live in is magical.
Yeah.
So even though I kind of know a little bit about how a rainbow is formed, I still think when I look at a rainbow that it's magical. Sometimes you see a huge bright rainbow, sometimes you see part of a rainbow, and sometimes if you luck out, you can see a full circle of a rainbow. So I think magic exists.
So how does this magic come to be?
Do you know how a rainbow works?
I think I do. So the sun hits the rain and then it forms like different colours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you play around with the garden hose, spraying water droplets on a lawn, on things like that at all?
Yeah. Sometimes when it's sunny, I spray some water and then I can see lots of different colours in the air.
There you go.
And these are the conditions you need for a rainbow. A fine mist, usually after a downpour, and the sun behind you.
Do you know how the colors come about?
Not really.
Well, the first thing we need is light. Good, strong beams of white light from the sun. But even though we see them as just one colour,
White light is made up of all the colors?
7 colours in fact, and these travel not exactly as beams, but as waves. Light waves.
You know, if you drop a pebble in water, what kind of waves do you see? Do they go out in circles?
Yeah.
Right. So, and then each of those waves go out in circles and they have a certain speed at which they move out from the point where you dropped the pebble.
In air, every colour wave of light travels at the same speed. That's why we see them all together as white. But when these waves of light hit the raindrops in the sky, something changes.
When it goes into water, they change speeds.
They slow down and reveal themselves to be the 7 amazing colours they are. So do you know what those are?
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue,
Yeah.
indigo.
And then there's a violet in there at the end.
So all these waves are travelling at different speeds. But how exactly does that turn them into all these colours? Turns out it's all to do with the ripples of the waves. So if you can imagine, some of the ripples of the colours are very small and some of them are very big. So the distance between each wave is what makes you see different colours.
It's called a wavelength. It's the length of the wave, the space between two crests of a wave.
So which has the smallest ripples and which has the biggest ripples?
The largest wavelength is red and the smallest wavelength is violet. And this is magic in a way, but we try to understand the magic.
Yeah.
And even if we do understand it, does this make it less magic? What do you think? I think that we are so lucky when heavy rain is easing off and we're looking forward to brighter skies to see these beautiful sparkling arches. But those aren't the only colours our skies are blessed with. On the 10th and 11th of May 2024, a phenomenon that's only usually seen at the North and South Poles travelled as far as Europe, Canada and Northern America.
Above Edinburgh Castle, it looked kind of like watercolour paint washed on a black scene.
This is Ada and Izzy, who saw it in Scotland.
It had swirls of pink, purple, blue, green. It was like so beautiful and you couldn't really see the stars because it was so bright. And we saw birds flying across the colourful scene. They looked like black silhouettes on a beautiful dance floor. I felt really amazed because it was my first time seeing like clear northern lights. Yeah.
The Northern Lights. Did any of you curious kids out there see them too? Just like Ada and Izzy? Unfortunately, Julia wasn't able to see them in London because in big cities, electrical light tends to block out the view. But she did watch a video afterwards.
I saw really colourful things and like colour clouds.
Colour clouds, yeah. And do you have any idea how they might work?
No.
No, yeah, neither me. But just like rainbows, since the dawn of time, people have been explaining them through myth and magic. So, the Danes, who are people who live in Denmark, thought that the aurora or the northern lights was a reflection of the swans. So the swans had a competition to see who could fly the furthest north, and some of them flew so far and it got so cold up there that they froze. So they were stuck there for a very long time. And then some of them managed to free themselves and they shook all the ice off their wings. And so the Danish people believed that the northern lights were these swans shaking the ice off their wings.
That's beautiful.
Do you think this could be a good explanation?
Yes.
I like it as well. So, what about you? Do you have any beliefs in what the northern lights might be?
I like a good story whenever I hear it, and I, like Julia, think that all of them are cool. However, I also know a little bit about how things work, but that doesn't take away the magic of all the stories you just told us.
That's good. So why don't you tell us from your perspective how the northern lights work?
Okay, let's start with the sun. What do we get from the sun, Julia, every day?
Light and heat.
There you go. We get a lot of light and a lot of heat. There's also particles that come from the sun, and they're called the solar wind. It's like the sun spews out these things, and it spews it out in all directions to all the planets. So these particles have electric charge in them, and they have names. We call some of them protons, some of them electrons. Have you heard of these names at all?
No.
Okay, so they're all inside us, all in the universe, and they make up atoms, and atoms make us.
They're a little bit like tiny, tiny bits of Lego, which makes up everything in our world. And these little bits of Lego leave the sun as the solar wind.
And then it comes close to the Earth, and if they all continued to hit us directly, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Have you played with magnets at all?
Yes.
Okay, so the Earth happens to be like a giant but very weak magnet.
We call this the magnetic field.
The magnetic field is very strong near the poles, the North Pole and the South Pole of the Earth. And because of this magnetic field, the particles that come from the sun get diverted and don't quite reach us. And that's very good for us. Otherwise, we'd be having a hard time with all those particles coming and hitting us. However, some of them do get through, and then they hit what's called the upper atmosphere.
The atmosphere. This is like a big blanket of different gases surrounding our planet. These gases are the air we breathe and are made up of lots of different atoms.
Those particles can then jiggle around all the atoms, and then by jiggling them, they give them some energy, and that energy can create the light that you see.
Remember we talked about energy being transferred in the episode, What is Energy Made Of? If not, do have a listen, as it will help you understand how the kinetic energy of the solar wind becomes light energy and the fantastic northern lights.
It's like if you take a bottle, a fizzy bottle, and shake it up and give it a lot of energy, and then you open it up and all the bubbles come out, right? So it's like all of these particles came and you shake up all these particles and connect them to the gases, and all those bubbles are like the light that comes out.
Yeah, all these protons and electrons, they're just shaking up all these different gases in the sky, and that's what makes all these different kinds of light.
Nice.
And amazingly, all these different gases give us a whole rainbow of colours.
Just like I told you about how a drop of water can break up the light into different colors, here the atoms can take in the energy from those particles and then give off different colors depending on who they are. Have you heard of oxygen?
Yes.
Yes, so that's what we breathe. And so oxygen gives off one type of color.
Like reds and greens.
And nitrogen, which we use in fertilizers and all kinds of stuff, that gives off another type of color.
They turn blue.
And so this combination gives us all these colors, and it comes around and streaks down towards the earth. What colors did you see in the pictures that you saw in the Northern Lights?
Green, some purple, dark blue.
Did you see any pink?
Just a bit of pink.
It seems green is the color that we see best somehow. That has nothing to do with the colors themselves. It has to do with how our eyes work. And we ourselves are pretty magical because our body is a huge machine that works so well to see and hear and smell and taste. That's magical to me. And green turns out to be a color that our eyes see best. And that's why a lot of the northern lights you'll see have huge swaths of green.
Wow.
You know what, Julia? In the kind of research that I do, I actually make my own protons down in the basement. I can create what the sun is giving out in little bits and pieces. I can't make energy as much as the sun does, but I know how the sun makes energy, and I can make a very little piece of the sun in my laboratory.
Wow.
That is cool, no? So he can make these very special kind of different building blocks or Lego, which is super cool.
Do you also make northern lights in your laboratory?
I cannot make the northern lights, but I make enough light. So I do actually look at light from elements that have not been made before, and I try to make sense out of them. So I don't make the northern lights, but I make enough light to keep me happy.
That's good.
Yeah.
So now we know how the northern lights worked. What do you think? Do you think they're still magical?
Yeah, I still think they're magical. Because it's just really colourful and sparkly.
Yeah, I think so too. What about rainbows? Do you still think they're magical?
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think it's possible to believe in protons and electrons and know that that's how the northern lights are made, but also think that maybe it is a swan shaking the ice off its wings?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what about you, Partha? What do you think?
I think we like to understand things. We have to make up our own stories, and we have to test our stories out and keep different stories in our head. And like Julia, we keep asking questions, and then we find the answers to some of them, but the magic doesn't go away. Some people say, if you figure out how the magic works, it's not magical anymore. I don't agree. I think even if you can figure out how it works, the fact that it works is magical.
Yeah. And you, curious kids, are rainbows and the northern lights still magic to you? I'll let you decide. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Conversations Curious Kids. If you've got a question for us, please do email us at curiouskids@theconversation.com and we will do our very best to answer it. With thanks to Julia, Partha Chowdhury and Gemma Ware, the executive producer of this episode. It was produced, presented and sound designed by me, Eloise. We'd love to make a season 2, so curious kids, please keep listening and keep asking the best questions. Hope to see you soon.